We don't condone the use of any illegal substance or any illegal activity. This video is intended for instructional and educational purpose only. Watch at your own risk. Viewer discretion is advised.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
In the garden with a green leaf sway. See bunnies rolling up, we light it all way. Mr. Guinness got the bombs, we puffin' all night. Talking cultivation, yeah, we're feeling alright. Light it up, feel the vibe, let it be known. Garden cultivation, network, we on the scene. Rolling that green, living out the dream. Chatting about the strains, how to plan it right. Join us every week, yeah, we light up the night. Wednesday to Friday, we keep it alive. Cannabis talks, everybody's feeling high. Sharing secrets of the grow, it's a sacred art. In this cultivation game, you gotta play your part. Keep it real, keep it tight, watch the plants grow. Garden cultivation, network, we on the scene. Rolling that green, living out the dream. Chatting about the strains, how to plan it right. Join us every week, yeah, we light up the night.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Yes, yes. Are you guys unburied yet?
No, not really.
Oh.
I live up north and we've seen snowstorms, but we got like 4 feet of snow and that is just crazy.
It is crazy because I'm 5 hours south of you and I have none. None. Like
I know,
this
I'm
much,
jealous.
but I don't, that's nothing. You know, it's cold.
We're
it's
on
snowing,
day 4. Day 4 and we're still digging ourselves out.
That's crazy. It's going to be August and you guys are still going to be having skating rinks in the park. That's nuts. That is nuts.
It is. Last Wednesday we had a really, excuse me, fun guest. We had Tanner Stewart from Stewart's Farm. That was a really great episode.
It was cool learning about like healing products through cannabis. I think that was super cool. Lotions, bath bombs, all that stuff. THC, CBD, you know, all the different compounds that they use. It was a lot of fun. He's a super knowledgeable dude, for one. He was the executive producer of, my God, what was that? What was that called again?
Grow. Oh, Jesus.
The Need to Grow. He was the executive producer
yes.
of the Need to Grow with Rosario Dawson,
Yes.
which was really cool.
Yeah, so if you missed that episode, you could go back and rewatch it or head on over to Garden Cultivation Network at Spotify, on Spotify.
Yes.
We also talked a little bit. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if anybody wants that link to that movie, it's free to watch. So if anybody wants the link to that, feel free to reach out and we can definitely send that to you because it was a really cool movie.
It was. And again,
kind of a big eye opener for sure.
Yeah. I think they said 80 football field of soil a minute that we lose or something like that. It was a really great episode. We did touch a little bit on organics, which brings us to our guest this week.
Yes. But he was just telling us in the background, he's not just organic. He's done everything. So
exactly.
So this is going to be a really cool episode. We have Brandon Hudson, who works with KIS Organics, and we've had Tad Hussey on already 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So now we get to talk to Brandon, and they do a show on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they answer questions mostly about organic stuff, but I've seen other people ask different questions about other nutrients, and they're always very, very knowledgeable. So if anybody has questions that they'd like to ask, we'll do our best to get them answered. But today, I think it's going to be a really cool show, especially if you're looking to get into organics, or you are, or it doesn't matter how you grow. It's going to be a really cool episode. So I am...
I agree.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's
I
do
am
this.
absolutely ready. Here we go.
Happy
Good evening.
Wednesday.
How you doing?
I can't hear you guys.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Um.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can? I can't hear you.
Crazy. Okay.
Should I leave and come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Try that. StreamYard is so weird how it does that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been doing that a lot lately too.
I don't know.
I think he left. I think he was frozen there, so I think he's left.
Yeah.
Yeah, StreamYard's been doing that a lot lately, where everybody sounds perfect in the background because we've been talking for the last 15 minutes. So I mean, it. Okay.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yes.
Excellent.
I was just saying
Sorry
how
about that.
StreamYard's been doing this a lot lately, like where you're talking in the background, everything's perfect, and then as soon as you come on, it just one person can't be heard.
As soon as you guys started
Doesn't make sense.
the live, the volume cut out, and I couldn't hear any of your back and forth beforehand. So, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
weird.
But also, I live on a little
weird.
tiny island. I live in paradise. I live in a little tiny island in the Puget Sound, and so my reception's weird. Like if a plane goes over, my phone will drop, and so. But it's totally worth it. Totally worth it to live in paradise.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I
I'm
would say so.
sure it is. Yes.
I'd probably give
So
up a
before
lot
we
to live
get-
in paradise, to be honest.
Yes.
Say it again.
Before we get too far into it, can you give a brief introduction on who you are?
Yeah, thank you guys first and foremost, both of you guys, C Bunny and Mr. Organics, for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Heather, who I think sent you guys my contact information. And
Yep.
My name is Brandon Hudson. I'm the agronomist for KIS Organics. I'm a very dedicated pothead, and I live in Washington State. And the company that I work with, KIS Organics, does organic substrates, amendments, integrated pest management. We do everything, lighting, beds, all that kind of stuff. But this isn't a sales pitch. This is a hangout. And so basically, our function is to create high quality organic substrates primarily for indoor cannabis growers. And I'm the kind of the soil nerd who does the soil recommendations and read the reports and give people paths to move forward. And then
Nice.
what else? I'm
The
a
soil
dad.
wizard.
Aspiring. I've been at it for over 4 decades, and I would say yoga and soil chemistry are the two things that the better you get at it, the harder it gets, the more you realize you don't know and you can't do that yet. And
Right.
So it's a very humbling chair to sit in, because you're going to be wrong. That's one thing I love about my company that I work for, and my boss, Tad Hussey, who's been on here, is I'm allowed to be
Yes.
wrong as long as I learn from it, as long as I can improve.
I tell people that all the time. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we get
That's how
better
you
as
learn.
humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't make the same mistake over and over and over again, you're learning. You're getting better.
Well, there's so many things that are canon that years later we realize, like root balls is one that comes to mind. Like 10 years ago, if you told me you were pulling your root balls as an organic advisor, I just said, that's heresy. You're crazy. Now we know that, thyroids and heavy metals load in their highest levels in there. So if you're not pulling those, you're setting yourself up for an eventual fail, So
Right.
you have
So
dogma.
potentially that could cause problems as no-till, right? no-till
yeah.
growers, that could cause problems for them because a lot of them just cut their stalks off and put the plant beside that one.
Yep. And that's dangerous for a variety of reasons. We could get into that later if you want to, but there's a bunch of things that could go. But so I'm an old deadhead. I got into cannabis growing, cultivation, mainly because when I was young, I thought someday I was going to be really old, like maybe 30, which, oh my God, what I'd do to be 30, like that's a complete
Yeah.
do-over. I'm double that. And so, but I thought someday I'd get really old, like 30, 32. And where was I going to get, where's I going to score some good herb, And so that was really kind of what made me want to grow that. And, like a lot of things, there was a girl, when I was in high school that was in college that I was hanging out with, and I liked her and she liked me, and she liked smoking pot. And I was like, I bet I could grow some pot. My mom's a botanist, a retired botanist. My Aunt Betsy, her little sister, ran Evergreen in Virginia, and that's Johnny Cash's wife, June Carter, the Carter family. That's
yeah.
theory. And so,
I
grew up.
Fun story about them and where I live.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Johnny Cash actually proposed to June Carter in the city that I live when she finally said yes, because he had asked her like 300 times prior to that.
Yeah.
But they were here when she finally said yes. So that's kind of
cool.
a off-topic thing, but it kind of fits. So.
Yeah, she's got a funny story about being mad because she was trying to, she had the forklift and she's trying to move stuff, and I think she said dumbass. I can't remember what she said, but she said something about some dumbass or some, effing idiot. I don't know what she said. But she said something rough about somebody was blocking her way as she's storming into the office, and she hears this, soft Southern, well, I'm real sorry about that, ma'am. That'd be me. And it was Johnny Cash, and he went out and jumped in the driver's seat and moved the bus over. But
that's funny.
Yeah. But so I grew up around plants and plant people, and I also grew up around a bunch of people who were, my parents were really young. I've got a twin brother. My dad turned 20 2 days before I was born, and my mom turned 19 a month after I was born. So they were kids, and and they were the generation. I was born in the 60s, and so they were heads, and all my aunts and uncles were heads. And, I've smoked weed with my grandmothers. My buddy Paul calls my family the Enigma because, like, everybody smokes,
Yeah.
And, or at least used to. And so,
but I bet your family functions are so chill. You know what I mean? Like, there's no arguing. Like, you go over to your uncle's house on Christmas time and everybody's arguing and carrying on because they're drinking and doing their thing, but if everybody just smoked weed, everybody be getting along, everybody be having a great time.
I threw a birthday.
Everybody's family could use that probably.
Yeah, it's good for you. I threw a birthday party for my cousin Ashley. I think it was her 30th, but I was in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a very conservative, put you under the jail for weed kind of place.
Right.
I had I'll leave it as an undisclosed, but a really dangerous number of plants, and this really nice 3-story house that I was renting with a couple of roommates, and we threw this party, and we were concerned though, because it's going to be a lot of people, and the potential for the police showing up was high. And so, we took the proper precautions, locked certain areas of the house off to where you couldn't get to the 3rd floor even. And, we were talking about how do we keep this thing. I know we're going to do a bunch of edibles. So we just did all these little different chocolate candies. And there was, 2 people that was kind of their job. Just as soon as you hit the front door, hi, come on in. You're going to have to eat a couple of these, And it was, we had hundreds of people, and nobody, one person had to be asked to leave because they were, out in the street taking a pee. And I was like, look at all these nice people being quiet and chill, man. Don't
Yeah.
do this, There's
They're
4
all
bathrooms in this house.
they're all having
Yeah.
nap time
Yeah.
right now. This is great.
Yeah, but we just
That's
kept
funny.
it so chill and so nice, and it was just, I mean, because there was at least 300 people in this yard, and everybody was chill. The neighbors weren't mad. It was, and weed did that. Weed does
Yeah,
all the cool
sure
stuff.
does. It does. It does. That's why I don't understand the stigma behind it all, but that's a whole nother topic for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of let everybody know how you got into growing in the first place? Like, was it your girlfriend at the time, or the girl that you were kind of hanging out with? Was that the whole reason at the start that you got into growing?
I wasn't really scared. I mean, I'll tell on myself. I've told this story before. I've been smoking since I was, like the first time I consciously got high, I was 4, and I know that my dad would put us to sleep in the car. And I'm not saying that this was smart, and I don't shotgun my kids, but
Right.
my dad,
Yeah.
for a trip to the beach from East Tennessee, if we were going to Myrtle Beach, my dad would put the air on recirculate, and we'd sleep the whole way to the beach.
Yeah.
I can remember being in the Smoky Mountains, though, sitting between my dad and his best friend from, God, they went to elementary school and all the way through college together, and still hung out. And they were passing a joint, and it must have been good, because eventually they started passing it to the kid to pass to the other person. And monkey see, monkey do. And I'm sitting in this beautiful
Yeah.
valley, which is just this beautiful place to be. And there's a huge herd of white-tailed deer just chilling in this valley. And I just kind of was like, let me hit this. And
Yeah.
I just took it. And I don't remember coughing or anything like that, but I do remember everything just getting beautiful right after that. And just everything got soft and pretty. And I was like, ooh, I like this. This is cool. And
So we've had one other person tell us that they got stoned for their first time at 4 as well. And that was when we had Mila Jensen on, and it was her daughter was here to kind of help with the bit of the language. And her daughter said, when I was 4 years old, we were in India, and my mom caught me smoking a hash joint in my tent when I was 4 years old. So
we all knew how to roll joints. Like, we weren't actively smoking, but we were around weed all the time, like a lot of the kids knew how to roll. A lot of the kids, my brother and I were the oldest, of all the cousins, and so we probably saw a lot more and were savvy to a little bit more than some of the rest. My dad died. It's been 2 years now. And, my twin brother kind of, he's in Ohio. My dad was in Ohio. I'm out here in Washington. My sister's down in Georgia. So unfortunately, the bulk of kind of the house necropsy fell to my brother. And my brother's got some health issues. He's had some botched surgeries, and so he's in a wheelchair a lot of the time. And so, bless his heart, he had to do all this very emotional and physically demanding thing. And so I didn't have the heart to even ask. But, like, I recently just got a guy sent me some seeds that he found cleaning out his friend's granddad's house, because the granddad had just passed. And back in the day, we all kept seeds in film canisters, and pre-digital, it was film canisters.
Yep.
You would put your weed and seeds into these nasty chemical little
I can remember getting ounces of oil in film canisters all the time back in the day.
Yeah. But so, like, they found some seeds that were labeled 77 ATF, Alaska Thunderfuck. So I've got those going in the tent right now. Got some of those popped.
Nice.
But my dad had
that's amazing.
Wooden. Yeah, I'm fingers crossed. I'll let you know. So I'm really excited about that. and we can get into that also. I'm a cultivar hoarder. I've got I
And breeder.
love. I like to breed. I like to play. I like to make stuff, and I appreciate other people's work. And but my dad had this wooden sewing kit, like the kind that lifts off and kind of like spreads out like accordions open. And I know that between that box and my dad's sock drawer, you know, because I used to steal weed from my dad, I fully admit it. Like he got hip to it, and like he was hiding it in the curtain rods, and like and you know, and I can remember like me and a friend being in my dad's bedroom, being like, "Damn it, he's moved it. Where is it?" You know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so
I did the exact same thing when I was in my young teens, I'll say.
Yeah.
And then eventually, not that my dad did the whole move it around thing, but like I always found it every time. So eventually he was just like, you know what, just come here. And we just started hanging out with each other in the garage a lot. My mom couldn't figure out why we started all of a sudden hanging out all the time, you know?
Right,
So,
right.
good times though.
But yeah, so I know that there were seeds in that house that went in the trash. You know I've thrown out hundreds of thousands. I mean, back in the day, you know, like you'd get your Frisbee out, you'd put on your favorite new album that your friend brought over, you'd get out a Frisbee and you'd start breaking up brickweed or, you know, whatever you had full of seeds. And we'd throw those seeds out most of the time, you know. Every once in a while you'd find, you know, you'd be smoking something that was just amazing and you're like, you might want to keep a couple of these, you know, but we didn't keep enough.
Absolutely.
You know, knowing then what we know now.
I was gonna say, I think it was just a lack of information back then. I think if it was now, I think we'd all be saving it. But the thing now is everybody's breeding for no seeds. Nobody wants seeds, you know. So unless you're a breeder, unless you're somebody that's using them, then they don't want them, right?
Yeah.
So
it's
hard to get seeds in good weed nowadays. Yeah.
I always do photo regs because one, I love a photo plant. Like autos have their place and they can be amazing, and they've come really far in the last several years. Folks like I'll plug Crockett Family Farms, Fast Buds. They've got some really good autos, but they've come a long way. But I love a photo period plant because you can play with it. Yes. You can hold it indefinitely. And then I like to do regs because as a longtime grower, I want to be able to play with that. And, you know, I get that folks will only let things out as FEMs, but I'm sure everybody in this room right here knows that I can get that. I can still get that, you know? And so it's just an extra step for me to reverse that and start playing with it. But I like, you know, for other folks, you know, like the cultivar that I've made that I'm the most proud of is named after my dog, Bagheera. And that was my best friend for 16 years. In the same way that nobody will ever be good enough for your kid, nobody will ever be good enough for your dog either. But I finally found
mine's sitting right here hanging out.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love dags. You like dags? You know, I love dogs. Nothing beats the love of a dog. Nothing. But so yeah, I love photos and regs so you can play.
100%. Bunny and I always laugh because Friday nights we do a show where people come on and show their gardens from the community, and it's kind of like what you guys do, except for us answering questions. They come up and show their plants. So a lot of people come on and they're growing autos and they look absolutely amazing. But Bunny and I laugh because like when we grow autos, they get about that big. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter if we start them in giant pots, little pots. Doesn't matter what we feed them, what light we give them, how often we water them. They just get that big.
I just can't do it.
I'm a photo grower through and through.
Yeah. Autos have some special considerations. Anytime you're potting autos, playing with fire, you're going to leave something on the table. So there's,
but you know, like, and I've seen people I've seen like where I've put it directly into their forever home, and I've watched people transplant them 3 times and still get them bigger than me. So I just look at it. It doesn't matter what I do to them; they just don't grow. I'm not a photo guy or an auto
Yeah.
guy. I mean,
The,
at
I
all.
was in South Carolina doing pirate grows, and we get hurricanes, and so you've got to get them in before the hurricanes. And now I'm
Right.
out in Pacific Northwest, where our June, July, and August out here is the best weather anywhere ever on the planet of all time. And it's just amazing. But as soon as you go, you're week 2 of flower, all hell breaks loose. DLI drops off to nothing because we're so far north. Like in the wintertime, it's getting dark at 3:30. In the summertime, it's not getting dark until 10:30. And so we get these really, my wife's like, "You've moved me to Alaska. What the hell's going on?" Like,
Right.
But so it's really hard to finish a photo period. I'll plug, friend of the show, Chad Westport. His No Joke
Absolutely
is the most fungally resistant plant I've ever grown.
It's funny you say that, because our friend Dr. Danknugs, he's in the chat right now. He grew the No Joke outside last year, and all his plants got PM except the No Joke. The No Joke was the only one that was untouched.
And I was growing. I had a greenhouse that I was able to keep stuff dry. I have fans in there. I lost everything in there to fusarium, bot, and powdery mildew. Oh, that's awesome. What's up, Holy Toledo? Good to see you. And then I had some No Jokes out just in a squash patch in Pacific Northwest. You've got these big giant leaves, and from the window it just looks like paper plates because they're solid white with PM. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. I lost maybe a half an ounce off of multiple, more than a pound per plant, and they just kept on keeping on. And the ones that I lost, I think, were damaged. Either a caterpillar got on it and that's where it started, or something like that. But unbelievable.
This thing as I unpack. What's up, Chad?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, congrats on the move, Chad.
We laugh because Chad, I think, is our most reoccurring guest on this show.
Yes,
he's been on this show, I think, more than anybody. So
as he should be.
Chad's like family over here. He's a good dude.
Chad's good people, man.
He is. So you're breeding, and you go under the name of Tatusadhu.
Yeah, I started Tatusadhu. Yeah, that's my Instagram handle, and that's because I was a tattoo artist for. I get called all kinds of weird stuff, Tate, all kinds of weird stuff, but it's tattoo because I tattooed for decades, and then Sadu, it's those are the Indian ascetics who, Ayurvedic path to Hinduism on this side, Buddhism on this side. That's how a lot of the things, that, when I said earlier, weed does all the cool things. One of the cool things it does is get you backstage at every reggae concert you want to go see. And, if it's fire, if it's loud, and, so I'm a big fan of reggae and a student of Rasta, in the same way I'm a student of Buddhism and some of these other things. And I think a lot of folks don't realize that the Sadhus, was it 1836 to 1917, something like that? There's probably 500,000 indentured servants and or slaves from India brought to the Caribbean, probably 38,000 to Jamaica. That's why, Jada, dreadlock, that's from the Sadhus, and that's why there's all those words like Kali weed and ganja. The first Rasta, one of the very first acolytes of Rastafari was a guy named Leonard Howe, and his guru name was Gong Guru. Let me make sure I'm saying it right. It's Gong Gun Guru Mirage, and that doesn't sound English at all. That's an
No.
Indian name, and so there's this really heavy Indian influence on Rasta. It's mostly African indigenous belief systems, those Hindu influences, and Pentecostal Christians, and that formed under the umbrella of Marcus Garvey and those kind of civil rights notions, and so the Rastids did something really cool, really smart. They took something that was used against them, which was the Bible, curse of Ham. Sorry, black guy, says here right in our book, bummer, but you're gonna suck for you. Well, Marcus Garvey said, well, actually, I read your book, and it says right here that Haile Selassie is, we're the chosen people. And so they used something that was used as a sword, as a shield all of a sudden. And so, people don't realize they were hunting Rastas in helicopters in the 30s and shooting them like dogs,
Right.
And so that was a really astute, really smart thing on a lot of different levels, but yeah, so that's I'm the king of segues. Please rein me in because I'll go off on a tangent.
You're not. I won't be the guy to bring you in. It'll be Bunny because I'm the other king of it. I get off
He's
topic,
usually
off
the
track
one.
all the time.
Yeah.
Bunny's like, no, come on, Ganix, get back here. We're over here now.
I'd love to get off topic. Yeah, I'd love to get off topic.
We just go with the conversation, and wherever it ends up, it ends up. I mean, we might be talking about weed by the end of it. We might be talking about, I don't know, could be anything,
I used to hang out with this guy in Charleston, South Carolina, who was a former pro surfer, and he was pretty, as an old deadhead who did a absolute ton of really good LSD. This guy was pretty crazy. And so if I think he was crazy, he was pretty crazy. And but he was great, and he was a lot of fun, and he had wonderful herb, and introduced me to some, he had some hookups in Florida for like the Triangle Kush and things like that. So he had really great weed sometimes, but he was a good dude, and he was a lot of fun to surf with, and you learn a lot. You can't help but learn from him. But I told my brother one time, I was like, hey, so G's coming over. He's gonna talk more than I do, and you're gonna feel like it's going nowhere. But 3 hours later, it will come back. And so, sure enough, he comes over, we get stoned, and he starts talking about, sharing a poo-poo platter with Greg Knoll, this famous surfer in Hawaii. And then it goes off into like, I can't even tell you how many segues. And then like, he was, he had 3 minutes before he had to go. And it was like, oh yeah. And so that's how I ended up eating the poo-poo platter. And I was like, see, I told you he would bring it back around. I don't always bring it back. I don't always get back there, but yeah.
I don't either. Sometimes I totally forget what I was even talking about in the first place, but a lot of times it comes back. But
my wife just starts laughing and going, squirrel.
All the time. I have such bad ADD. Like, it doesn't matter. You can flash a light in the room behind the wall, and I'm gonna see it, and I'm gonna go for it. Is Fox Farm ocean forest considered living soil? Well, that's a good question.
So, do we want to talk about
Pizza
living
Man.
soil and the definition
Yeah,
of living soil?
Pizza Man wants to know if Fox Farm ocean forest is considered living soil.
Okay, so living soil, and there's a lot of folks that organics. Well, I'll just say cannabis cultivation in general has. I was just talking about Rastafari. There's the 12 mansions of Rastafari. If you open up for folks that are old enough to remember phone books, if you opened up a phone book to churches, there's going to be 1,000, if you live in a decent sized city, there's going to be 1,000 different churches. And so even all the same people that like the same guy can't get on the same page. It's the same in Rasta. It's the same in everything. It's the same in surfing. It's this, some people are short boarders, some people are long boarders. Cannabis is the same. Some of us are organic, some of us are salt growers. I'm not dogmatic. We were talking about this for a second earlier. If you're growing, I've got kids. I would like for you to be sustainable. I know that's not a goal of everybody. It's a goal for me. I want it to be sustainable. But if you can afford it, you're not poisoning my water, and you're growing fire, compliments to the chef. I salute you. I dig it.
Yeah.
And for me personally, the difference I see with salt versus organic, and I say this often, and I get heat for it, so I'll say it again. There's probably a lot more bad organic growers than salt growers, because if you're managing pH and EC and your environment, obviously PAR, VPD, all these extraneous things that you would have to manage in organics as well, you've probably, if you're using a solid product, a JR Peters, a Jax, something that is well balanced and matches your irrigation. Thanks, bro. Good to see you again. But if you are doing that, you should probably have a pretty good harvest of some pretty good herb. And the more cycles you put in, the better and better you'll get. With organics, there's a lot more unknowns. The EC is a valuable number, but it's not the same accurate number that you get in a salt solution. Right. And even in salts, but especially in organics, it's not even camps. Sometimes it's cults. Like, this is the only way to grow. This is the only way to grow. And I mean, I support salt growers. Like, there's salt growers that call me at KIS and get help because they've got a pest or a pathogen. For whatever reason, their salt fertility program is not working. Their environment, they've got issues. And I help them deal with that. That's one of the really cool things about being a cannabis grower, and especially like older legacy growers, because the only good thing I can say about Prohibition is I know how to do electric. I know how to do plumbing. I can frame a house. I can do the installation. I don't want to learn any of that, but we had to, because you could not call somebody to come do it.
Right.
If you had a fire,
exactly.
You grabbed a fire extinguisher and pulled the main breaker.
You had to take care of yourself.
And so it forced us to be more complete growers. As somebody that grew up around floriculture and row crops, a lot of those, floriculture, they've got a lighting person, they've got a fertility person, an integrated pest management person, all these things. Cannabis, we wear all the hats. We have to. Sure. And so, so I'm a fertility nerd. That's the seat that I'm most interested in, but I have to be able to do all these other things and see how they relate. You flip one toggle, they all are going to move with it, So I when I look at all these different camps in organics, I'm not dogmatic. If it works for you and you love it, you're having fun, you're growing good weed, keep doing it. Now, there might be another layer, there might be another layer that you might, like I said earlier, like yoga and like cultivation, fertility science are the two things I know for a fact. The more the better you get at it, the harder it gets, because you're going to hold yourself to a higher standard. I just saw, I get in a lot of,
I do it to myself all the time.
Yeah, right. But I get into a lot of bro science conversations because I will, whether it's perched water tables or white ash or any of these other things like that don't meet scientific scrutiny, I'm not putting that information out to hurt anybody's feelings. Like, if you can get more for your ounce, because it's burn white, then yeah, maybe that's
Yeah.
something you should target. For me personally, I've never once looked in the toilet to see if I enjoyed my meal, you know, and
Right.
and
Right.
and if you know, it doesn't make sense to me why anybody would
That's a
do it in
really
the
good way
first
to
place,
look at that, actually. That's a
I like that. Yeah.
it's this yeah.
you know. It doesn't make sense, and the only reason that we focus on that is that comes from tobacco, you know, and like when people quote you, you know, a white paper, and they're like, oh, you have to have more of this and less of this, and it'll burn white. Well, I just got tired of those conversations, and so like we were talking earlier, I reached out to somebody that's smarter than me. I'm a fertility expert. I'm not a pyrologist. So I reached
Right.
out to a professional pyrologist, somebody that went to, you know, 6 more years of school to know how things burn. And when I posed the white ash thing to him, he laughed so hard he couldn't talk for the first 5 minutes. And he was like, what? And that comes from tobacco. And so when people are quoting that, you know, like you need magnesium to burn white, what they're thinking of is these, you know, adulterants, the tobacco industry, because they made up white ash to be a sign of quality, a sign of purity. But all they did, you know, so what creates white ash? Everything but carbon. If it burns completely, it's going to be white. And there is one caveat there, and I'll get to that in a second. But so what that tells me, and you can prove it, you can take the worst weed in the world and go throw it in your car in the summertime, let it get bone dry, it's going to burn white, you know? And then you could take the best herb, your favorite herb you've ever smoked, just perfect, just, oh, so smooth. And it's going to be, you know, salt and pepper. And that's because of incomplete combustion. And that comes down to the moisture of the sample. So that's more controlled by your cure than anything. The resin,
Right.
you know, of your, you know, so if you've got a really good oil ring on your joint, you probably don't have white ash because it's going to burn a little more slowly. And so it comes down to these, and the one caveat, and I did get from this guy, this pyrologist, you know, because he laughed. He's like, we've been growing stuff for 400 years in this country. He's like, you don't think we know that? He's like, the fire department knows this, the forestry department knows this, nerds like he know that. And he's like, the one thing I'll give those people is that really, really high chlorides, which we want to avoid as organic growers anyway, for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
Those don't burn completely either. And so if you've got really high chlorides, and we did see this with a grow that I work with in LA, where they were able to get a ton more money with white ash, and he was getting too much dark ash. So we eliminated his chloride problem, and all of a sudden he had white ash. And so that told me that his cure was already on point, but he did have that as a thing. And so there's always another layer. And I might talk to a smarter guy next month who's like, oh, that pyrologist you talked to, oh, he's just got a master's, I've got a doctorate, and I've been doing this for 10 more years with him. Check this out.
But it comes down to the different layers. There's more layers of that too, right?
Yeah.
There's a TED talk that I heard one time with a guy, and I can't even remember what the TED talk was about, but at the end of the TED talk, he's like, hey, I feel like I wasted your time. He could tell people weren't engaged particularly. He's like, let me leave you with something of value. He's like, everybody in here, raise your hand if you know something. Everybody put their hand up, because everybody knows something. We all know something. And so he picked on a guy up front. He's like, okay, everybody put your hands down. I'm going to pick on this guy up front. He's like, what's your name? And he's like, and I can't remember the guy's name. I always say Dave. And he's like, I'm Dave. And he's like, okay, cool. Dave, what do you know? And he's like, I know I'm Dave. And he's like, and everybody laughs. And he's like, okay, how do you know you're Dave? And he's like, well, it says so on my birth certificate, my social security card. I have picture ID. It's on my pay stubs. It's what my parents call me. It's what my wife calls me. All my friends. The guy at the grocery store calls me Dave. And he's like, okay, cool. He's got documentation, photo documentation, first, third, and impartial witnesses. They all agree he's Dave. So to the extent that we can know you're Dave, you're Dave. We'll give you that one. He's like, tell me one other thing that you know. One. And he was like, and he fell into his trap. And he's like, the earth travels around the sun. And he's like, perfect. That's what I was hoping for. He's like, everybody in here agrees that probably. He's like, you know, and everybody did. And he's like, how do you know that? Have you ever done the experiments? They're pretty easy to do, but how do you know that? And he's like, and his point was, we don't know much of anything. Like all these hormones, all these things that we do with plants, these acquired immune responses that, as an organic grower, I'm really trying to tease out, these terpene and trichome densities, and I'm using these biological relationships with the plant to do that. It's theoretical. It works. If I do this happens, and it's replicable. It happens every time I do that, but I still don't know, like there's a hormone that regulates, who gets the love, and it's the apical points, because the plant has a biological mission. We love this plant. We can't help but imbue it with these human characteristics, but it's not altruistically making these secondary metabolites to get Brandon high or to make Brandon's back pain go away or whatever. It's doing that to protect itself and to reproduce, to make more of itself. That's its biological mission. So we're trying to harness that. We want to do those things, but then somebody like myself, I really want to know the chemistry. I want to know what is that hormone? What's the chemical makeup of that hormone? What's the lock and key system that makes this happen? And so there's always going to be another level, and so that's why I get into, I won't even say arguments, because I'm not going to argue with anybody. I had a guy get really mad at me not too long ago when I was on Gabby's page, and the guy really was going in, and I just kind of started laughing. I was like, look, dude, if you're this passionate that you want to fight me about weed, we'd probably get along, so chill out, smoke a joint.
Absolutely.
And,
if you care this much, I care this much. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I was like, so we probably have more in common.
To bring it back all the way around, is Fox Farm Ocean Forest living soil?
Okay, so thank you. The back to the poo-poo platter with Greg Knoll. So so living soil, and you'll hear all these different no-till living, all these sorts of things, and organics, and you can get really buried in the semantics, and and different people use different definitions of things. I tend to stick to, again, we've been growing stuff for 400 years in this country alone, so I tend to stick to, like, you won't really find me in forums. You won't find me in that kind of stuff, because I tend to be in academic forums that don't have anything to do with cannabis for the most part, because
growing
morphology is morphology, physiology is physiology, plant fertility. Yeah, I study, substrates, soils, and their chemical makeups and release methods and rates and all that kind of stuff. And so forums a lot of time are very passionate, occasionally angry, not always, and this is just not a generalization, but not always the most backed by data or science, and again, that goes back to prohibition, left this vacuum that we've shoved all this stuff into, because I got guys that are still asking me if they should hang their plants upside down so that resin drips into the buds. Like, there's a general misconceptions of plant morphology and physiology.
That was something that I literally thought happened when I was like 16 years old and knew nothing about the plant. I just liked getting high. You know what I mean? That's literally what I thought when I was 16 years old.
Yeah. But so to answer Pizza Man's question, to actually answer it, so Fox Farm, so what is soil? There's 3 legs of any stool that you want to sit on, if you want to spend your time there. What are the 3 legs of soil? There's the physical, which is your tilth, your drainage, your aeration, your gas, water, air interface. How quickly can I, as somebody who's been growing for 4 decades, you can guess I probably like to tinker a little bit. And so I like a soil that drains well, and I can add stuff to it. And my plants appreciate it. It gives me opportunities, windows to add things to my substrate. So there's the physical aspects. Then there's the biological aspects, and that's your protozoa, nematode, bacteria, fungi, all the, all the biology in the, digestive tract of your earthworms, all those things for organic growers, because it's going to go in an ionic form, whether you're a salt grower or an organic grower. It's going to be an ion that travels into your plant. And so aside from sulfates and things like that, potassium sulfate, Epsom, gypsum, things that are water soluble essentially and can be uptaken pretty easily. Especially stuff like nitrogen, you need those intermediaries, those biologies to break that down and make it available. We like to use targeted specific phosphorus solubilizing bacteria because phosphorus has these really strong triple bonds that are really hard to break. Our plants don't have strong enough exudates to do it. So we might use like a great white, a microbial mass, a mammoth P, some specific targeted bacteria that we know will break that bond. And so the biology is really important. And then the area that I really love is the fertility, because I like the math. I like the math side of things. Sure. And that's just your mineral intake. You're going to get your carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. We call them free because they come either from the atmosphere or from watering. And then your NPK, and then all your, calcium, magnesium, sulfate, or sulfur, and then your trace. Those are all going to be things that we add in, hopefully in a controlled, purposeful, proactive, non-reactive methodology. And so for me, a living soil is something that is has the best of all those three things. You can have a living soil that has really bad tilth and doesn't drain and becomes anaerobic, right, and the pH crashes, and you've got facultative anaerobes and all kinds of like nasties growing in your soil. That's living. It's not productive, right. And so rather than, but so I would say that a product like Happy Frog or something like that would be a living soil because it does have some biology in it. They don't sterilize that soil. If it's not sterilized, then it would be a living soil because you've got biology in there. Now, is it optimal? And I've used a lot of Happy Frog. I was talking about it in the live the other day.
I was just going to say, I heard you talking about it the other day. That's why I kind of chuckled when I saw the question come up, because I literally heard you say it on Tuesday. So yesterday.
I use KIS soil, obviously, because it's who I work for. And we put a lot of work into our soil to make it the quote unquote best soil that we can. And so I know that all three of those areas are covered. And so is it a living soil? Yeah, sure, it is. It's got biology in there, and it's got fertility, and it's got, but I can go in that room right now into my mother room, and the one tray that looks crappy is the one tray that's not draining like all the other trays, because that soil just doesn't have a lot of aeration added to it, because aeration is expensive. It's something else you have to add. And so not all soils are created equally. So you can have a living soil, and then, I like the Kaizen approach. You can kind of start anywhere, and as long as you don't have pesticides, excess trace, or heavy metals, you can pretty much fix it. If you've got excessive boron, arsenic, you might want to start over. If you've got heavy sodium and chlorides, we can flush that out and start over. Your biology, there's a lot of methods, and let me just say a shout out to Elaine Ingham, who's one of my heroes who just passed away recently. Tad Hussey, who I work for at KIS, his dad, Kip Hussey, Leon, was one of her very first acolytes out in the world. And so I rent a property that's owned by Tad's dad. And so I've got 500-gallon stainless steel brewers out here, and, a low boy with a 3,000-gallon tank on it that he could, fill up with compost tea and pull up to your farm and spray it all down for you.
Yeah, because that's how KIS originally started, right? Was Compost tea.
Yep, with compost teas. And so, like, organic folks who might be in here are probably familiar with Jeff Lowenfeld's Teaming with Microbes, Teaming with Fungi, all those books. I've got the original manuscripts with Leon's corrections saying, oh, no, that's not how that works, or whatever. They were here when I moved in. Leon's like, you probably want to throw that stuff out. And I was like, oh, no, I'm keeping this.
No, this is gold.
This is history, gold. But so Elaine, I love what Bryant Mason's my favorite agronomist. He's as good an agronomist as you're going to find, and especially willing to deal with us cannabis growers. And he talks about soil food web as the pulp fiction of organics. It gets people excited. And I was the same way. When I took Elaine's intensive, I was going to wash my locks with compost tea. I was going to brush my teeth with it. I was going to, if you got a broken bone, I was going to spray it on you. We were going to save the world. But then a few days later, you realize that there's not really a lot of SOPs. And I've kind of come back full circle back to the chemistry background of, that's a tool for me to use chemistry. And so you want to, optimize all three legs for a living soil. Another term, and you've said it already once here, or maybe twice, no-till. And like, I really prefer no compaction as a goal and, and a title for the type of soil and growing that I do, because contrary to some of the soil food web messages, we know from direct microscopy, and this is well accepted and well studied, you get better diversity and better total population with soil disturbance. So in a 10 to 12 inch bed, and we can get into why you want that shallower, you don't want 2 feet for a living soil bed, it comes down to irrigation practices. But for that 10 to 12 inches, you don't want layering, stratification. Plants don't need calcium on Monday and nitrogen on Tuesday. You don't want to do a perched water table. You don't want to put rocks in the bottom of your bed or your pot, because all that does is makes your pot smaller. And the reason that is anytime you get two homogeneous surfaces, substrates together, it doesn't matter if this is sand and this is clay or the reverse. You could have a less porous or more porous. When you get two homogeneous substrates together, you create a perched water table, because most of us think of filling up a glass is how pots fill up, because we've been filling up cups our whole lives, and we can see that. And so intuitively think it's going to fill up, but you've got gravity and capillary action. So gravity wants to pull water down, but water is a polar molecule. It meaning that it's got a charge on either end. And so it wants to stick to itself, and it wants to grab hold of any solid surface, any organic substance. And so when I'm filling, I'm not filling from the bottom up, I'm filling from the top down, because gravity wants to push it down, but that capillary action is so strong that until I've added enough sufficient weight, essentially, it's not going to be able to travel down into the substrate. So that's why you'll see with a lot of organic growers, they're like, oh, my beds are great, I just watered them. And you scrape the top inch off and it's bone dry, And so pulse watering is a good technique for that style of growing. But so,
I when I was growing, like I'm kind of doing a little bit of both at the moment, like synganic, I guess we'll call it. But when I was doing full organic, you get kind of that crust on top from re-amending and doing all this stuff to it, right? And a lot of the times you would feed, and then you would just watch all the water go down the sides of the pot. Nothing actually penetrated the soil. It just went down in between the dirt and the walls of the pot and then came out the bottom. Nothing got wet at all. Like you said, this far down, everything's dry. So pulse watering,
so you want to get everything under the substrate too. I see folks that, and whether it's fertility or practices like chop and drop, it's really important to get that under the substrate. If you're a potato grower and your neighbor's a potato grower and you don't like how your neighbor's been acting, how do you ruin his season? Well, you take all your detritus and detritus from your field and you throw it on his field, because
Right.
that's why you see potato farmers dig everything under, and then they come along and they've got those tractors with essentially like a flamethrower on the back of it, and they just burn the whole field. And the reason they do that is if you don't, you're guaranteed you're going to have potato blight next year because you've provided a home. So if you want aspergillus, if you want fusarium, if you want botrytis, chop and drop and don't turn it under. Yeah. Again, it goes back to
when you're talking about a chop and drop, you're talking about like cover crops or even your plants, your cannabis plants, deleafing and dropping them on the surface. You're talking about burying those underneath a layer of whatever medium you're using.
Some side of soil. Yeah, you've got to get it under. And so like I don't use cover crop or mulch indoors. I do outdoors. It makes a lot of sense for erosion, moisture, those sorts of things. But indoors, you're creating a microclimate that is conducive to fungal pathogens. You're creating an environment that if you do get thrips, you'll never get rid of them. If you want to fail for aspergillus, that'd be a way to do it, and so, I get a lot of people. There's a guy that comes on the lot sometimes and, he'll reach out sometimes. Brian from Minneapolis is a super nice guy. And Tad actually just got to meet him in Minneapolis. But Brian, he most of the time when he calls me, he calls me out and he's like, man, so-and-so asked a question, or I asked a question on the live. And he's like, you and Tad are always with your, it depends. And I'm like, it's not a cop out. It really does depend,
It does.
The poison's in the dose, in the details. And, so normally somebody sends me an email with a really simple, innocuous, innocent question. And they get a 4-page reply from me asking them a million questions. And they're like, I just wanted to know this one thing, man.
Man, I tell everybody, if you ask me a question, or anybody, if you ask anybody a question about growing and they don't follow up your question with more questions, move on to the next guy. Ask the next person.
Yeah.
Because you can't just give somebody a straight answer on something with no knowledge of what their environment is, what their medium is, their substrate, what nutrients they're using, how strong their light is. All of these things matter at the end of the day. Yep. So it's like, if you don't know these things, I can't answer your question. I have to know certain things in order to answer that. So I tell people all the time, I apologize for asking you 30 questions for your one line question, but like, these are things that I feel I need to know in order to feel comfortable to even answer your question. So
I've devoted 100%. A good part of my life to this plant, and it's not so that I can make guesses,
right.
It's so that I could, when I started kind of haunting Tad Hussey years before I worked for him, was because I heard him give a talk and he said actionable data. And I was like, okay, this is my kind of guy. He's got data, he's got metrics. Let's talk,
Yeah.
And, I love a trial. I love an experiment, but it has to be done the right way,
Absolutely. But we've hit the hour. As we say every week, it went by super, super fast. Super fast.
We'll definitely have to do a part 2.
Yeah, most definitely.
I don't.
We gotta get. You know what? Maybe next time we'll get you guys both on at the same time, because you guys have both been here now. Maybe next time we'll get you and Tad here at the same time. That would be a fun.
I love that, because we don't always have the same answer, which I think is really.
I know
great.
That's why you guys work so well together. And that's why you guys are so good together on your show, because I see questions come up and I see Tad just go, "That's all you."
Right.
Or
right. But
you go, "That's all you."
We've all got, I'll say something and then he'll drop like a really important pearl, or vice versa. He'll say something and I'll be like, oh, but it's crucial that you do this. And so I think that we do work well together, and we don't have the same methodologies all the time. And I'm probably way more uptight of a grower than Tad is. You know, it's
But that's how you guys still at this level are still learning, because you're pushing each other.
yeah,
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like he'll bring something else to the table that you didn't even think of, and vice versa. You'll do the same, and you both stop for a second and go, "Huh, I never thought of it
it's our
that
whole
way."
team.
You know, you just
It's our whole team.
yeah.
You know, I was in a meeting earlier this morning with Tad, Dr. Ben Higgins. He's our chief research scientist, and Andrew Martins. And Andrew runs our warehouse, but he's also a very long time, as you would assume, you know, and passionate grower. And we were looking at, you know, making some adjustments because we're always trying to improve our substrates and our offerings because we want to protect growers as best we can. And
Sure.
we were like, well, hey, let's get rid of this one thing. And Andrew was like, ooh, well, what about the research that says XYZ? And me, Tad, and Ben all went, I've never even heard of that. What the hell? And we immediately, all of us started, you know, you could hear all the click, clack in the background. And we're all looking at white papers like immediately. And so, you know, Tad has provided a really, you know, awesome vehicle that I'm very honored to be able to ride shotgun in, because I feel like I can help a lot of grow. I've killed a lot of plants. I've probably killed more plants than everybody in the chat and everything together. You know, I used to have a farm where I would do 20 to 40,000 cuts per rip. And so
Crazy.
I've killed some plants, man. And, you know, and thank you, Heather. Thanks for getting me on here. And yeah, so we do have a Patreon where we meet. You know, we do the Tuesdays, and I really look at that as kind of like tithing back to the community. You know, we charge a couple $100 to talk to me, Tad, and Ben on a Zoom call about your facility. But we know that a lot of, you know, home growers, they don't have that resource, and we still, you know, I'm a grower at the end of the day, and so I got love for you if you're growing this plant. You know,
for sure.
I'm amazed. I always try to bring this up, and anytime I do any kind of public speaking, the fact that we can talk about this, that should stop all the arguing right there, because I'm old enough that most of my growing, except for the last 3 years, I was looking at 30-year sentences, and they couldn't stop me. You couldn't stop
Scary,
me.
right?
I was looking at 30-year sentence, and I was putting in work every day for decades. And so, so if you're a grower, I'm here to help, man. I'm down to help. I'd love to help. And so
I love that.
I look at those Tuesdays as an opportunity to give back to the community for free. And, you know, we have our conference in the end of August out in Montana. We did with Elevated last year, and that was great. And doing it again this year. And, you know, it's just a really awesome opportunity to, you know, meet people that you talk to all the time in person. And then
it's super cool.
Really get in the ear of, you know, if you've got a particular issue, a particular question, you really want to double down on it. Like, those are great opportunities to do it.
For sure. Yeah. So if anybody out there wants to hear more of these kinds of conversations, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. on KIS Organics YouTube page.
Yeah, thank you.
You get all the opportunity to ask questions and all kinds of stuff in there. So you learn a lot. One episode I was already learning, you know what I mean? So it's
well,
it's
we have a
great
podcast,
chats.
The KIS Cannabis Science Cultivation podcast that Tad does, and I've been fortunate to be on it a couple of times and run my mouth, but there's been some really great guests on there, and we try to take the, you know, whatever the most, you know, I love how Ben says, Ben answers every question as he starts it out. His answers always says something like the most current data would point to, and then he gives his answer. And I love I love that that non-dogmatic ability to be wrong and to learn something else. You know, I had a grower get mad and write an email.
Well, it's like you were saying earlier, like we're reciting things that somebody else wrote. And with more data, with more research, things are changing. We are evolving. We are learning. We are getting better, right? So data is going to change over time
And
with the whole prohibition and
lab
everything
doesn't
that we.
always match up. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the lab doesn't always match up with the grow room either. You know,
Right.
like IPM, for example, if you throw a leaf with some russet mites in a petri dish and throw a Swirsky in there, probably eat a couple of them. It's not going to do anything in your garden, your 3,000 square foot head house. It's not, you know, and so, you know, there's a disconnect there too, you know. Academics is where I hang my hat, but at the same time, I'm well aware that academics doesn't always land. And as we see academics lean harder and harder into AI has access to all the same dumb stuff that we do too. It's got access to all the right stuff, but you know, if it'll do a drawing of you with 3 arms by accident, you know, then it could also. And so I have people send me stuff. You can tell it's an AI printout, and they're like, "Hey, I just learned this today," and I'm like, "Well, I don't think that's true." You know, and
you asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT went on Google and it found all the information that we can find, but it just found all of it and compiled it into one spot for you.
Yeah,
that's what it does.
Like I saw somebody recommending like vinegar and lemon juice and baking soda for managing your pH of your water, and you know, we're already way past, maybe we can talk about it next time, but the chemistry of why you wouldn't want to do any of those, you know, is pretty strong. You know, it's like the liquid based carbon inputs, you know, not that they won't work, but that's a really expensive way to feed your plants. And I hate to break it to folks, but 99% of your carbon uptake in any plant, cannabis plant, tomato plant, corn, it's coming through the stomata. And so if for some reason plants all of a sudden couldn't do that and they were taking in their carbon through the roots, then maybe that'd be something cool, but we'll all be dead. You know, if that happens, you know, there'd be no oxygen for us. So, you know, cannabis, just beware, you know, do your research, do your own investigation, reach out to experts. If something sounds too good to be true, it is. And just beware, because cannabis, you know, it was really bad when the hemp bill hit, because all of a sudden there's tons of people getting into hemp, tons of people being able to do research, and cannabis doesn't even want to remake the wheel. You know, it's just going to rebrand it as a tire and charge you twice. Oh, you're cannabis? You don't need wheels. You need tires. Those are twice as much, you know? And so we've been growing stuff. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to learn how to grow. You know, cannabis does have some things that are unique to itself. You know, I was giving a talk at South Carolina State one time, and this old cowboy farmer got up and he's like, "Well, this is a real peculiar plant. There's a boy plant and a girl plant." And I was just like, "Oh, wow. Okay." So there's a lot to learn, and we can all, you know, and I'm making fun of the accent because I've got it too, you know, like I always joke that like you can't cure cancer with this accent. I cured cancer. No, you didn't. Not you, you know.
Well, that's funny. I pick up on it. We pick up on it because I mean we're over here in Canada, eh? So I mean you guys you guys see our accent or hear our accent, and we don't. You know, it's
right.
But yeah, I think yeah, exactly. I think definitely we'll get you back for round 2, and I think I like the idea of getting you and Tad back here at the same time. I think that would be super cool. And
that'd be fun.
And yeah, so do you want to let everybody know where they can find you quickly before we do wrap it up?
Yeah. So Tatusadhu, that's my Instagram handle. I am really bad about getting back, and this is a lie actually. I'm really good about getting back to people about DMs most of the time, but I am trying harder and harder to not do that. One, DMs are just too easy. You know, I get it. I smoke a lot of pot. And if you're sitting around in the living room at 12:30 on a Friday with a friend and you're like, let's ask Brandon, like shooting those DMs off and then I'll get 14 follow-ups. It's really hard. It's really hard for me to keep up with all that stuff. And, you know, and I could get 200 DMs in a day sometimes, and it just makes it to where I can't be effective. And so if you're serious and you've got a serious issue and you want an answer in a timely manner, check out the Tuesday lives and you can ask it. Send me an email, brandon@kisorganics.com. You know, or you can do a Hail Mary and send me something on Instagram. I love emails though, because you can send me photos and a description of what you've got. You know, I wrote the dichotomous key for KIS as far as, you know, a visual way to identify nutrient deficiencies for especially for organic growers. And then otherwise you'd have to catch me in the woods. I do a lot of hiking. And so, catch me outside. That's what they say, right? So,
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Well, man, we appreciate you coming here and sharing your story and helping spread the knowledge to everybody.
Knowledge.
And
yes.
yeah, I love hearing from the people that have been doing this way longer than me. You know what I mean? I love hearing. I love hearing all the stories and just how things were back in the day and what you guys actually had to go through, where we have it super easy. We have a question, we look it up on Google, we know how to do it. But you guys, everything was done trial and error. You had to figure it out. So
just getting a light with
big
30
time
years hanging over your head, like how do you navigate going to the store? There's not a store. Okay, well, where do you get a light from? Well, you got to know this guy.
Yeah.
You got to go outside and cut the street light down, and you got to, you know, figure out how to wire it. Like we were saying earlier, you had to become an electrician and a plumber and a framer and all these things to just live back then. So, but no, we appreciate it, man.
Don't steal electricity. That's the easiest way to get caught, man. And really easy.
Or burn your house down or something. So but awesome.
And thank you guys
we definitely
much. I appreciate it so much. And it went really fast. And hopefully we could do it.
It did.
Oh yeah. If you ever want to show your plants, come back on a Friday night and pop up and show your garden. That'd be cool.
Okay. Yeah. Because I want to. I saw somebody say they want my skunk cleaners. A lot of folks know that I like the long flowering stuff. You know, I'm a fan of Budulero and what those guys are doing. If you don't know who those guys are, Dave and Tony, you really need to check them out. You know, they're doing long flower and they're doing ugly flower. Tony was fire in 61. And he's like, there wasn't any pretty weed. The uglier it was, the higher you were probably going to get. You think Thai stick and some of those others, and like their pearls and so I like to do a lot of that stuff. I like psychedelic herb. I think there's a horrible bottleneck of quality, terpenes, experience, all that stuff, and we're losing the really important building blocks. So
definitely, that's why we need to talk to people like you, and that's why we do this show on Wednesday nights, because we get to talk to people, learn the history of how this all happened. So we're gonna get you guys back on, and we're gonna continue this awesome conversation.
Sounds awesome. I look forward
to it. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your day. And you have yourself a great rest of the week.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for spending some time with us.
All right. You have a good night.
Have a great night.
You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. That was a lot of fun.
It
did fly by.
Man, that went super fast. They always go by fast. That went by like really fast.
Really fast. And like
that was cool.
We've barely touched on like just the surface.
Oh yeah, for
There's
sure.
so much more.
For sure. And we're definitely going to get more into that because, like I said, we're going to try to get both of them on. And
Yes.
part 2, not sure yet, but we're going to work that out, definitely. And when we know, you'll know. For sure. But yes, who do we have? Who do we got next Wednesday?
So next Wednesday, we have Mr. Pigeons 420 himself coming on, which will be a lot of fun because we've already had Rob from, oh my God, CLTV.
CLTV.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
can,
we've talked to all of them. We've talked to all 3 of them,
oh, we have, yes.
all different times. And we'd also like to get Chris on here too, but I mean, that's probably not going to happen.
No,
He's
I doubt it.
busy, you know. But
He's a
yeah,
family man. He's busy.
we're gonna sit down and shoot the shit with the Birdman himself next
Yeah, so
Wednesday, 9
definitely stay tuned for that. And until then, we'll see you on Friday where we hope you come and show your gardens.
Yeah, we'll be showing ours only if you show yours.
That's right.
Yes. All right. You
Have a
guys
great
have
night,
a
everyone.
great night and peace out, homies.